name is Kenzie and welcome to a watercolor tutorial. And we're going to be painting this swan piece right here. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for this type of painting to have good quality paper. If you're going to be painting with very beginner sheets, you're not going to love how the blending happens or even picking up some parts right here. If you don't have beginner paper, that's okay. You can still do it. You just might not be able to get the same effects with our lifting technique that we have underneath our swan. And I also just want to emphasize too, the swan and working with white, it's pretty tricky. So we're going to go over just blending out and then figuring out how to do different layers. We use a lot of different colors other than just gray to try to get this effect of a swan so we don't dull down our swan too much. So I hope that you have fun. Let's get started. So this right here is my Winsor Newton watercolor paints that I have taken from the tube and put it inside this palette that I got off of Amazon. I have a tapping cloth right here. It's always good to have one. That way you don't have excess water on your page. I also have my 2 water cups right here. One I use for cool paints and one I use for my warmer paint colors. I also have right here my dryer. I like to use this to speed up the process between layers. These are the brushes that I use. These are the silver black velvet. I have size 12, 4, and 8, and these are the round tip brushes. So these are also some other brushes that I like to use as well. If I have a large area like a landscape, I'll typically use this brush. And this oval brush that I have right here is really good for florals and other things as well. So I do like these 2 brushes. These 2 items I use all the time. This is called masking fluid. It acts as a cover. So wherever I put this masking fluid, let it dry, I can paint over top. Can make sure my painting is 100% dry. I can scrape off the masking fluid and that area will be left untouched. So I use this a lot, but make sure to use an old brush because it does get kind of goopy and you'll end up with a broken brush. I also like to use bleed proof white. This is a very highly pigmented white, which will sit on top of any type of color. I'm using this painting as an example. I always like to have painter's tape on hand. I like to paint down my paintings. It's easier to 1, film, and 2, also just keep everything from moving around and it getting a little messy. It also helps to protect your desk, which you'll see mine is very worn. So it definitely does help with that. So to get started, I just want to mix up a few of my colors and just get it already in my palette. I want to have a nice dreamy sky. Oh, I don't want indigo, so I'm going to come in with like a nice bright blue. And I'm going to really water it down. And the reason why I'm putting a lot of water in here and I'm not putting white is because white will dull the transparency. Whereas with water, you still get that same effect of a nice blue sky by just adding water. So this is going to be my sky color right here. So go ahead and mix up your sky color. I'm also going to be mixing up a few different shades of green just so that I can have that handy. I'm going to mix up some sap green. Pull it in here. I need to put some more paint in here. Some sap green. Let's do some yellow. So some cadmium yellow. And then I'll put a little bit of hooker's green in here too. Okay. I think we'll just start with that for now. I feel pretty good about that. Okay, so what we're gonna do first is we're gonna do the wet on wet technique. And I'm gonna be grabbing this big mop brush. And the reason for that is I am going to do my sky. So another thing that you really wanna have handy is a little tissue because we're gonna be blotting. So I have right here just my paper towel ready to blot some clouds. I'm just gonna put it right up over here. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna grab my nice brush, make sure it's clean. I'm gonna tap my napkin so it's not absolutely saturated. And I'm gonna come ahead and with clear water, I'm gonna apply my sky. So as I get closer to my swans, I wanna be careful that I'm not going over them because I do not want my swans to be blue. That was a lot of water. Okay, now that I have the majority of this covered, I'm going to use my smaller brush. Add some green in it. Just kind of come around the swans as much as I can. So if you want, you could also come in here with the swans with some masking fluid as well. And and that way you can paint without worry. But I'm just gonna paint and be careful. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put my first layer of my sky down, and I'm gonna use actually my size 12 brush for this. I want it to be a little bit more blue. Okay, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna do more downward strokes, and I am gonna leave some gaps and spaces in my sky to represent clouds. So right here, I'm using the wet on wet technique where I have a wet surface and I'm painting with another wet surface, which obviously is my blue. And you'll see it just starts to bleed and blend and have really soft blends, and that's exactly what we're looking for. If I was to just paint while the sheet was dry, it would just have lines and not as soft blends that we're looking for. Okay, so I can also come in here with a different shade of blue with different shades and tap around as well. So we have some different variations. And then where I kind of see my white space is where I want to come in, and I want to just start to kind of blot around. And just start to kind of pick up for my cloudy day. And I like how at some parts it's still leaving it nice and blue, while others it's nice and white. Okay, I'm gonna come back in here and almost shadow underneath some of the clouds as well. I'm just gonna tap while it's still wet. I'm gonna just blend this out a little bit. It's a little bit too dark in some areas. I'm gonna blot a little bit. I'm just gonna bring in a little bit of blue inside this area right here and blend this out. Was this a little bit too white? Okay, I actually really like how the sky has turned out. So what I'm gonna do now so that I can move on and not smudge it with my hand is I'm gonna dry it. Okay, so you'll see because I've done the wet on wet technique and I've also brought in different values of blue, I have lots of depth in here. So I love how this cloudy day has turned out. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to actually just add a little bit of a mountain in the background as well. So I don't want it to be pulled too much of my focus. So I'm just going to come in and just mix a little bit of indigo into my sky blue color that I already had down. And I'm just going to I'm going to start a little mountain over here. I'm going to come in with just some water and just blend this out. I'm just freehanding some mountain shapes. So over here as well, I'm just gonna grab some water and just start to kind of blend out this side as well. I'm gonna have some greens over here, but I don't want any harsh lines from my mountain to kind of impede on any type of background that I do over there in the corner. I can even come in while this is wet, do that wet on wet technique again, and just put down another layer so it's just a little bit darker. And again, just trying to blend out this area over there for my greens. Bring in some of that extra darkness over here that I had. Okay, cool. I'm gonna come and bring this underneath the little beak area. Yeah, this would definitely be a lot easier if I had the masking fluid down, but like I said, I'm just being careful. And then I'm just trying to go where the line is right here of my mountain to continue it on the other side. And then same over here, just gonna kind of blend it out. And I'm also gonna blend out this side as well. I'm gonna have some nice greens on that side. This is a little dark. I've had this painting on my desk for a few weeks now, trying to get to it to paint it, and I am so excited today to paint this piece. Okay, so now that I've blended out this corner, I am going to dry it. So with a wash of the sky color that I already had, I can come in and just tap around a little bit to just bring in that sky color underneath this area right here. I'm gonna bring that down just a little bit as well around the beak. That way it just looks like there's some sky in the background of the beak as well. Okay, so you'll see I did not go super light, which is exactly what I wanted. So I can start working now on my greenery and whatnot over here. So this is gonna be the fun part. So the thing to keep in mind here is if you need to be working with the gradient of the color. So I'm gonna start on the lighter shade. That way I have lots of depth, but I also wanna keep in mind that I'm not putting every little detail down for my trees because it's supposed to look in the distance. So there's some things to keep in mind over here. So I'm gonna come in now and I'm just gonna do some really rough shapes of some trees. I'm gonna jump over to this side over here, and you'll see my green is super light. And I'm just doing the blotting technique. This might feel kind of awkward if you've never really done this before, but there's a plan here. So just do some blots and some rough outlines of what a tree might look like. Come bringing over here. I'm gonna bring this greenery down over here as well. And over here. And I can get a damp brush and I can scoop up different parts of the screen again to kind of have a little bit more of a highlight in there. And I'm gonna let this part dry. We always start with our lightest layers first with the watercolor, and then we build them up to our darkest shadows. So I'm gonna start now working on my background right here. So one thing that I am gonna do is I am gonna apply masking fluid around my body of my swan. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, this probably needs some masking fluid. An old brush here, I'm just gonna damp it really quick, and I'm gonna very quickly just apply it on the body. So now I just need to wait a couple minutes to make sure it's completely dry before I can paint anything. It's drying, I can mix up the colors that I would like to have in my lake. Again, I'm going to pull in some nice light and airy blue. Just lightening this up with some water. Pull this nice vibrant blue. Pull in some water here. I also want some darker tones in my lake, so I'm going to pull in some darker blue colors. And I'm darkening it up by just using some indigo. Okay, this is kind of dry. I'm just going to be careful around it. I'm just going to paint it and just be careful. Okay, so again, I'm going to do that wet on wet technique. So I'm just going to use my mop brush again and give it a good soak. So now that the majority of that masking fluid is dry, I can just paint over top and it will be fine. There we go. Okay, so with this blue color, I'm gonna have my lightest point be right in here, and then as I taper out, I'm gonna have it be darker. So starting with my light and airy blue color, I'm gonna come in and just go side to side, bringing all the way over, just like that. As I go out towards this area, I'm gonna start to just apply that color. Have a little bit more of it in my brush, and I'm gonna do a little bit more streaks as I'm coming out. So it looks like there's some natural ripples happening. I'm even gonna add a little bit over here. And then I'm gonna slowly start moving and adding more shadows, some darker layers towards the side over here. Now I'm using the side to the almost tip of my brush for this part. I'm even gonna use some damp brush to soak up some parts. I'm just gonna apply some more of this darkness over here. And I'm using some water to just blend out any harsh lines that I might see. Blending it out, coming in with some light parts. Okay, so as over here, I'm gonna pull a little bit more of a darker green. So I'm gonna pull some sap green and some hooker's green together. And I am gonna put a little bit of indigo in it. And I'm gonna add this part over here because it's reflecting this greenery part. I want it kind of reflecting on my water. I actually want a little bit of a darker green as well. And I'm just doing the same lines that I was doing before, going side to side. Using water, you can blend out harsh lines that you might have. And I can keep going, keep adding depth. Close to the shoreline, I want it to be a little bit darker. I have a harsh line over here, so I'm just using some water to blend that out. And then underneath my swan, I do want it to be a little bit darker, just because it is sitting on top. And I'm gonna do kind of like some circular motions underneath my swan, so the little oval streaks to be the ripples of the water when it's moving. I'm gonna get rid of everything on my brush, and I am gonna come around and do the lifting technique where I'm using the very tip of my brush and I'm just pulling up for some ripples. And do you see how now where I'm lifting it up, I have some white space? Now you're able to get that if you're using some nice paper. If you're using beginner paper, this technique might not work that well. Some paper lifts really well, other papers they really don't. So yeah, this part definitely depends on the paper that you're using. I'm using Arches watercolor paper. It is a bit pricier than other paper, but I do find that when I'm doing landscapes especially, I like to use Arches. I feel like I'm able to blend and it holds its water a lot more. So I have a little bit more time to come around and play with my colors. And whereas with the more beginner friendly paper, it just dries really quickly. You're not really able to do as much as I'm able to do with my Arches. And Arches, it just blends really well. I really like Arches paper. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how my first layer is here. So I'm gonna stop fussing over it. And I might add a second layer. I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna see how I feel at the end, and if I want to, I might come in and with some certain spots and just add a little bit more depth here and there. Okay, yeah, so I have to let this dry before I can really do anything else. Okay, so keep in mind of what I said with our greens before. I want to start building up some shadows and depth, but I also want to put my lighter layers down first. So towards my mountain area, I'm going to come in and just add a little bit more green, and I'm still going to stick to this blotting technique that I have done already. So I just picked my shadow point. It's going to be underneath my trees, so I'm going to start adding a lot more of my shadows underneath the trees, and I'm going to let the top parts be a lot lighter. So I talked about in another video how it's really important to have really 3 zones when you're painting trees and other items as well. You want to have your light zone, your medium zone, and your darkest zone when you're looking at your paintings. So right now I'm working on that medium, so I don't want my color to be so drastically dark that it just pulls away any type of focus or any depth that you could do. So I'm just putting a little bit of a darker color down of what I've already used. I'll let that dry, and then I can put on more depth for my dark part. I'm just adding a little bit more hooker's green. I'm adding a little bit more trees and bushes. Adding more sap green here. I'm gonna add, I think, some more trees over this side too. Okay, I have to let this dry before I can layer and do anything else. So now I can start adding some more darkness. So I'm gonna mix my sap green, I'm gonna mix some hooker's green, I'm gonna mix some cadmium red. This will just make my color a little bit more warmer. You saw how that just changed. I'm gonna add some more sap green. And now I can just add a little bit more shadow. So when you're doing these layers, you're gonna wanna make sure that you're letting each of the layers previous shine through. You're not completely covering everything that you have, keeping in mind that light, medium, and dark. So right here, I have my light zone, I have my medium, and I have my dark. I'm gonna pull this green that I have right here into my water a little bit. I'm gonna try to keep this close to the shore. I'm not gonna pull it too far and too deep. I'm gonna add some indigo. And I'm going to cover a lot of this area now with some darkness. The green that I used for my shadow color, I feel like it's just too warm. That's why I added a little bit more blue to it. I should have kept on the cooler side since there's already so much cool. There's not a lot of warmth in this painting. So that's why I just kind of added a little bit more indigo versus the red to keep with that cool tone that we got going on in here. And I'm still just using this blotting technique all the way around. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some brown to this green, and I'm gonna start kind of creating the illusion that there's some trunks. I'm gonna do some flicks coming up. It's gonna look like some nice trees in the distance. and do some flicks up. And I'm going to kind of blot towards the bottom as well with that color. So I'm introducing this brownish color as well. And I'm just going to continue blotting, just building up my layers towards the bottom in these areas. I've got a nice vibrant green now going. And you'll see I'm jumping around to different parts. That's mostly because I'm trying to, I don't want everything completely dry here, but I want it at least damp. So I'm definitely jumping around from side to side to give this side now a chance to dry. I'll work on this area, and then when I feel like it's just too wet, not really making a difference, I'll come in over here and start doing a little bit more blots over there. I'm going to pull some of this green now down into my little lake area. Okay, so I feel pretty good about this. I did a lot of layering here with my green, so I feel pretty happy with how it looks. So it's not a super realistic tree, but it's enough where you know that there's some trees in the distance. It's not pulling my focus too much. So I'm going to take off my masking fluid now. So the trick for this is you have to make sure whatever's in your background is 100% dry. If you start peeling this when your background is wet, it'll either smudge or it'll just rip your page. Also, if you've used a hot dryer, I've made this mistake before, make sure your page is 100% dry, otherwise it will rip or tear from it just being too hot. So now it's the fun part. Now we get to pull this part off and paint our swan. So we're painting a white swan. When you're painting with watercolor with white, we don't paint with white, we paint the shadows. So that's what we're going to be working on. So I have to clear off a little bit of my palette. I'm going to mix up a little bit of like a pink, a pale pink color. So I just used a little bit of cadmium red. It looked like there was a little bit of brown in there, which actually worked out. I did not clean this before, so whatever brown was in there made this really pretty color. So maybe mix some red and brown together. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. There's some green in that yellow, so I'm just going to pull my yellow over here. I'm going to put a lot of water in it. Okay, so to do any type of animal, it's all just about your layers. If you don't layer here and let things dry, you won't really get much of a swan effect. Okay, so the area that I'm going to focus on over here is right here. I'm going to apply some yellow. And I'm going to mimic under here and do the same. I'm going to add some yellow. I'm going to apply some yellow over here where these ink marks are. I'm doing some flicking out motions for the feathers. Right here, back here where the feathers are on this swan, I'm going to do some yellow over there. I'm going to pull some yellow over here. And I'll pull some yellow on the neck of the swan over here as well. And then I'm going to pull some yellow in over here and over here where the wings start to happen. The next color I'm going to introduce is this really nice pink color. Oh, why is that blue? Whoops. Okay, we want it pink, not blue. And I'm going to use this pink to shadow the neck. Underneath in here and around the neck over here. And you'll see here I'm constantly dipping my brush into my water. That's because I want to have just a damp brush to blend out any harsh lines that I might have. I'm not a fan of harsh lines when I'm painting. I'm just going to be a little bit more aggressive here with this pink. Again, just blending out with my brush. Okay, I'm going to use this pink under here. I'm going to put this over top in this corner where the yellow is over here. Use some water just to help blend that out. I'm going to use some pink over here as well. So you might be looking at yours being like, what the heck? I don't see the vision. Just hang with me. And under here, I'm going to pull some pink. Okay, so now what I'm going to work on is my blue. So the reason why I'm having blue in here is because it's reflecting from the water in the sky because they're white, right? I'm going to come in and I want my light source to be hitting them directly on top. So really I want this part to be nice and light and the top of their heads to be nice and light as well. So the darker parts of my swan are going to be right underneath here. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to apply my shadow color. Now remember, this might look a little goofy, but I'm working with my lighter shades first, and then I can come in with some darker shades as well. And I'm going to be just doing some flicking motions because it's feathers. And you're going to see some lines, some ink marks. I tried to help you guys out by applying some ink marks for your feathers. And I'm blending that out with water. I'm coming in right in here with some flicks for my feathers, and I'm going to blend that out. And I'm going to blend this part out as well. Coming along here on this side of the bird. So you'll see I have little flicks marks in here for the outside of the feathers. I'm coming in and I'm just following them going underneath because that's where a shadow would be as well. It's right in between any type of feather. There would be some shadows as well. I'm going to cut across in here and shadow this part. So for this neck area, this part all right here needs to be shadowed. So I'm going to come in and start to build up my shadow in here. So because I've done that, I can now see the neck goes in here and all back here is my body. And I'm going to do the same for this little guy over here. I'm going to come down. So now this is the body, this part is all the neck. So I'm going to come in now and start to layer with some darker colors. So now you can see more clearly where the body is. So I have an ink mark right in here. This is going to be a nice dark part for you guys. So why don't we fill this part in so that again we can clear up some areas. So right in here, I need some more brown. I'm going to add some gray in this brown. I'm going to come in and just add some flicks using water and flicking that edge out. And just blending it out with water. And then this bird has it over here. Okay, and we can keep going. I'm actually going to use this shadow color a little bit to come in and shadow in here behind the neck. And just keep using water to just blend it and soften out my lines. As well as in here, I'm going to shadow over here. So I need to start darkening up some of my shadows here. So I'm going to mix in some indigo. So right in this feather part right here, I'm going to come in and just make it a little bit darker. And I'm going to blend it out. I'm going to come along the top of its body right underneath the yellow part that we put down. And blend that part out. I'm going to come with a little bit of gray. Shadow right underneath in here. It's more gray. I'm going to blend out this gray part in here that I just put down. And I'm going to bring down some gray in here as well. So if I was just to come in and just start adding gray everywhere, it would just make your art piece just feel so muggy. So that's why I'm using different types of shadowing colors versus just having everything be gray. It would also have your piece be very dull and flat. So this is just helping give it a little bit more depth. I'm just coming into different areas down here and just adding some fine lines. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in this little birdie's face and get started on the beak, just so I can have my first layers down. That way it helps me have more of a vision. I'm going to mix up some cadmium red and some cadmium yellow for its beak. And I am going to apply this color down, following my ink marks. I'm gonna leave some space over here for some white space. I'm gonna use just water now on my brush, and I'm gonna blend out that line. With just water. So it looks like the sun is hitting it. I'm going to touch right in here with a little bit more pigment down here and let that bleed out. Okay, cool. And the other side. I'm going to leave a little bit of white on that beak as well for the sun hitting it. Same thing, blending it out with just water on my brush. I can touch it with some more pigment. Okay, I'm going to dry it. I'm going to come in with my black and gray. So around its mouth in here. So you're going to want to use the very tip of your brush here as much as you can, because there's a lot of fine little details in this bird. And I've tried to make it easier by sketching it out for you. I'm actually just going to dry this because I don't want to smudge it. Okay. So I'm going to welcome you all to the middle zone of your painting where you might look at yours and just want to give up. Keep adding your layers, keep adding depth to your painting, keep doing the wet on dry technique. Don't give up on your painting. I'm going to bring that down a little bit more. I wasn't loving how my swan was looking, but now that I have this part down, I'm liking it so much more. See how it just doesn't look as horrible as what it did before? Now it actually looks like a swan. Okay, so I'm in my middle zone for sure. So I'm going to keep pushing through. I'm going to keep adding some more layers to it. Now I actually really like and can see what it is. So I'm going to keep shadowing. I'm going to add some more shadow over here on the neck area. I'm going to even add a little bit of a shadow around the crease. A little bit more depth over here. And I think the key is just making sure you're just blending, blending, blending. If you're not blending out, you're going to be left with some pretty harsh lines that might not look great. So I'm putting down my color and then I'm using water and I'm just blending it out. Applying my shadow, using water, and I'm just blending it, making it really soft. Where's that pink? Oh, sorry, that reddish, pinkish color. I'm gonna bring that in more. My chair is so squeaky. I need to figure out how to fix that. If I need to put some oil somewhere. I want to bug my husband about that. It's so squeaky. Okay. And just keep adding your layers. Keep going. And just above the yellow part, I'm going to apply some shadow. So I'm going to leave my swans alone for a minute, and I'm going to come in and start to just add my final layers to my water. Lost for words there. I'm going to come in and just add some fine details up here. Using the very tip of my brush. Kind of coming into my bird just like a little bit, because I feel like it will help get that feathery look that I'm looking for as well. Okay, I'm gonna come in here. I'm gonna mix up a little bit of a bluish greenish color over here. Oops. Do a little bit more of my ripples. Under my bird. So I want to come in with a really nice light color in here. And I'm using definitely more of the side of my brush. And my brush is not completely, drenched in water. It's pretty dry as well, so that's giving me a really cool technique down here. I do want a shadow, I think, underneath. I think that's what's bugging me as well. I want to just have there be a little bit more shadow under this swan. Yeah. Okay, there we go. I feel like I like that better. Now that underneath it is completely shadowed nice. As well. Okay, I really like how that looks. I feel like that's all I kind of want to add to my lake. We're in the home stretch. I'm definitely still not 100% happy with my swan, so I just want to add a little bit more depth to it. So I'm going to mix some of my blue, some indigo. So what I want to do is I need to just have there be more definition here with my feathers. So right in here, there's a part right here that I want to shadow. So it's more of like the under part of my bird. And I think that's what's bothering me, is there's just no separation under here with the top part of my bird and the bottom part. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a little bit more shadow work. Maybe I'll do some brown. And then I'm going to do the same over here. I want my feathers to just look a little bit more defined. So I'm coming around each section where there should be a feather, and I am going to shadow. Coming right inside and shadowing it out. I'm also finding over here, I'm not loving it. So this is supposed to look like the under part of the bird. So this needs to be a lot more defined as well. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of more of a yellow. Because I don't want it to just be all dark and muggy. And right in here, towards its body, I can start adding some different brush strokes to it. I just felt like it's just so flat. And then even in here, I want there to be more depth. And underneath should definitely be a lot more darker, just because it is the bottom of the swan. It's definitely not seeing as much sunlight. And then I need to dry this. Everything's blending. And in here I can shadow. So I'm mixing up a bit of a blue, and I'm going to come under because I feel like this is just messing me up a bit too. I feel like it's just too big. So I'm going to come in and just add some blue in here to just make it a little bit smaller. I think that's what was bothering me as well. It was just such a big swan. Yeah, I'm just gonna fix it up really quick with just underneath, add a little bit more depth to my blue and make this a little bit smaller. There we go. Now I'm happier with it. I want to fix up the lines, I think, on this one too. Okay, so the problem now that I've outlined I need to make sure it's blended in with my water. So I can come and just add some nice lines back here. And I can use water to blend it out. And I want to do some more little lines down here as well, since I have some lines in the background. I just want to make sure I'm being consistent and adding some lines down here. Okay. Sorry, back to the bird. I just got distracted there. Okay, so for this bird, my heating just went on. It's also very loud. There's always just a lot of sounds going on in my house. It's either the kids or some type of a dishwasher or something going off. This just makes recording louder than what I'd like it to be. Okay, so again over here, I just want to add some shadow down here. And then even in amongst these feathers, I just want to add a little bit more depth to my feathery area. So I just want to blend out this a little bit more. I feel like it's just not blended, so I'm just going to blend that out so it's just not as harsh looking. And I'm going to dry this. I feel like I've got a good sense of the bird down. So what I want to do is I want to add some white to it. So I have my bleed proof white, and this will just sit on top of what I've already done. And I think this will just kind of help break up certain areas. I'm going to create little flicks. And give it a nice effect to it. And I'm using the very tip of my brush. I need more water. And this is just sitting on top. I'm gonna break up any harsh lines that I might have and emphasize different areas that I also have. My bleed proof white's all broken on the inside, so it's a lot harder for me to pick up some of my colors. I'm just adding it underneath the neck, in here. This is so hard. Oh, there we go. It's not picking it up as well as I'd like. Okay. Just gonna add some right there. Oh, I like that. I'm gonna let that dry and then do it again. I'm gonna do a little eye. Make sure my brush is nice and thin. Okay. Come in here and definitely break up some of that dark lines that I have. And it almost gives it like a little bit of a grayish tone to it. It just sits right on top. And I'm getting this nice effect. There's some feathers in here. It's coming in nice and gray, but it's not doing it. So you'll see the difference that each step really does take. And it's a lot of fun to create these different animals, and it can be kind of tricky too. It's not, painting animals is not easy at all. And I really like this white. I feel like it's really helping the painting come along. It's breaking up the harsh lines that I have, giving the effect that there's extra feathers in here, but also still giving me that shadow look that I need as well. Okay, so I feel pretty good about this. I'm gonna come in, sorry, just do a little bit more. So I feel pretty good about this. I hope that you had fun with it. I know this one's a little tricky with lots of blending and also figuring out how to do extra layers and all the things, but just keep going with the motions. Don't give up, push through that middle zone. If you don't have the bleed proof white, I definitely recommend it. I feel like it really just made all the difference there by giving my bird a little bit more texture. Feel free to check out my other videos, like and subscribe if you are not already, and happy painting, friends.